I never believed in ghosts. That's important to say first. I believed in loneliness, in stress, in the way silence can twist your thoughts when there's no one around to correct them. That's what I told myself when I accepted the overnight security job at the Harrow Street Apartments. The building had been condemned years ago, scheduled for demolition once the last legal disputes were settled. Until then, it needed someone, anyone, to keep squatters out and document structural issues. The pay was high for how little work it required, which should have been my first warning. The property manager slid the keys across the desk and said, "You'll hear things." I asked him what he meant. He paused longer than necessary, then said, "Just don't answer back." The building smelled like dust and old water. It had the kind of silence that presses against your ears. My office was a small concrete room with monitors lining the wall, each showing a hallway, stairwell, or lobby angle. Most of the tenants were gone. A few units still showed signs of life, but I was told they'd be vacated soon. My first shift was quiet. Too quiet. No footsteps, no voices, just the occasional hum of failing fluorescent lights. At exactly 12:47 a.m., I heard knocking, not at the door, behind me. 3 taps against the wall. Slow. Deliberate. I waited, held my breath, listened. Nothing. I told myself it was the pipes. Old buildings knock and groan. That's what they do. Then it happened again. 3 taps. This time, closer. Like whatever was making the sound had moved. I didn't turn around. I didn't check the cameras. I sat perfectly still until my shift ended, convincing myself that fear was just my imagination trying to entertain itself. The second night, I came prepared. Coffee, music in one ear, a plan to keep my mind busy. At 12:46 a.m., the music cut out. Static replaced it, low and crackling. The knocking began a second later. Faster now. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. I spun in my chair and stared at the wall. Nothing. No cracks, no pipes. Just concrete. I checked the cameras. Every hallway was empty, except the 3rd floor. The image flickered, then stabilized. At the far end of the hall stood a figure. Too tall, too thin, not quite shaped right. It wasn't moving. It didn't sway or breathe or shift its weight. It stood like a mannequin left in the dark too long. I leaned closer to the screen. The figure raised its arm and knocked. The sound echoed through the office at the exact same moment its hand touched the wall on the monitor. I didn't stay for the rest of my shift. By the 3rd night, I told myself I'd imagined the figure. Sleep deprivation does that. Fear does that. I arrived early and forced myself to walk the halls. Everything felt normal. Empty, yes, but normal. At 12:47 a.m., the lights went out. Emergency power washed the building in a dull red glow. Every monitor turned to static. Then one by one, they came back on, all showing the same hallway, the 3rd floor. The figure was closer now. I could see its face, or what should have been a face. Its skin looked stretched, like it didn't fit what was underneath. Its mouth was open far too wide, frozen in something that might have once been a smile. Dark streaks ran from empty eye sockets down its cheeks. The radio on my desk crackled to life. "Security," a voice whispered. "Please respond." It didn't sound like it came from the radio. It sounded like it came from inside the walls. I picked it up and asked who was speaking. There was a long pause. Then, "You hear us now." The knocking started again. This time, it came from the office door. Slow. Heavy. The handle rattled. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. I could only watch the monitors as the figure stepped closer to the camera. Closer. Closer. Until its face filled the screen. Its mouth moved, and every voice came at once, screaming, crying, begging. Dozens of overlapping whispers, all saying my name. The walls screamed with them. Then silence. The lights returned. The knocking stopped. The cameras went dark. I quit the next morning. 2 weeks later, curiosity got the better of me. I searched the building's history. There was a fire, electrical failure during overnight renovations. The night security guard was trapped inside when the alarms failed. Witnesses reported hearing knocking from the walls during the fire. Rescue crews said it sounded like someone trying to escape from inside the building itself. No bodies were recovered. The official report listed the guard as missing. There was a photo attached to the article, a still frame from a security camera. Timestamp: 12:47 a.m. In the reflection of the office window behind the desk, something was standing, watching, smiling. Last night I heard knocking in my apartment wall. 3 taps. Slow. Patient. And this time, it sounded like it was already inside.
Story number 2. I live alone, and I always have. That's not something I ever thought twice about until the sound started. My apartment isn't old. That's what bothered me most. No creaking pipes, no warped floors, no history I could blame. It was clean, modern, and quiet in the way new buildings are supposed to be. The first sound came at 2:13 a.m., a soft, dragging noise, like something heavy being pulled slowly across the floor above me. I checked the time because it felt important, precise, deliberate. I waited for footsteps to follow, for a door to open, for anything that sounded human. Nothing. The dragging stopped abruptly, like it had reached the end of the room. I told myself it was a neighbor moving furniture. People do strange things late at night. The next night, it happened again. 2:13 a.m., same dragging sound. But this time, it didn't stop. It moved back and forth, slow, measured, like someone pacing with something they didn't want to lift. On the third night, I went upstairs. The apartment above mine was empty. I knew that because I'd watched the previous tenant move out months ago. I stood in the hallway staring at the door, listening. Silence. No dragging, no movement. I put my ear to the door and heard breathing, deep, strained, like lungs working too hard. I knocked. The breathing stopped instantly. That was the moment fear stopped feeling abstract. I went back downstairs and locked my door. At 2:13 a.m., the dragging began again. Only this time, it came from my ceiling. Something scraped slowly directly above my bed, tracing long, uneven lines like it was learning the shape of my room. Then it stopped, and a new sound replaced it. A soft, wet thump. Once, twice, 3 times. Something heavy falling. The maintenance office didn't believe me. They said the building plans showed no crawl space, no attic, nothing above my ceiling but concrete. That night, I set my phone to record audio. At 2:13 a.m., I woke up to the sound myself. But listening back later, I realized something was wrong. The dragging noise wasn't coming from above. It was coming from inside the room. Faint at first, then closer. Something else was on the recording too. Breathing. Not mine. Slow and careful, like whoever or whatever was making it knew I was listening. The following night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my bed with the lights on, staring at the ceiling. At 2:12 a.m., I heard a whisper, right beside my ear. "Don't look up." The dragging started immediately. This time, I could see the ceiling bend. Not crack, bend. Like something heavy was pressing down from the other side. The surface bulged, stretching unnaturally, forming the vague outline of a human shape. A head, arms, legs, flattened against the ceiling like it was lying on glass. Its face slowly turned, and I understood something horrible. It wasn't above me. I was beneath it, watching from the wrong side. The ceiling split open with a wet, tearing sound. Dust and fragments rained down as something dropped into my room. It landed in a twisted heap on the floor. Its limbs were too long, its joints bent the wrong way. Its skin looked pale and thin, stretched like it had been pressed flat for years. It lifted its head and smiled. "I waited," it whispered. "You finally listened." The lights went out. When I woke up, it was morning. The ceiling was intact, no damage, no dust, no sign of anything unusual, except for the drag marks on the floor, leading from my bed to the wall. I moved out that day, but sometimes, at exactly 2:13 a.m., I feel pressure above me when I sleep, and I swear, I hear something learning the shape of my ceiling. Every night at exactly 1:09 a.m., the elevator stopped on my floor. It didn't matter if anyone pressed the button or not. I noticed it during my first week living there. I'd be lying in bed, half asleep, when I'd hear the familiar ding echo down the hallway, followed by the soft whir of doors opening and closing again. At first, I assumed it was another tenant working late. The building was tall, and I was on the 7th floor. People came and went at all hours. But the hallway was always empty when I checked. No footsteps, no voices, just the smell of cold air drifting from the elevator shaft. The second week, curiosity got the better of me. At 1:08 a.m., I stood in my doorway and waited. The elevator arrived on schedule. The doors slid open. Inside was darkness. Not the kind caused by broken lights. This was deeper, thick, as if the interior swallowed the glow from the hallway. I didn't step inside. The doors closed. The third week, things changed. At 1:09 a.m., the elevator doors opened and stayed open. No sound, no announcement, just an open doorway breathing cold air into the hall. I heard something then, a slow inhale, coming from inside the elevator. I backed away and locked my door. That night I dreamed of standing in the elevator, staring at my reflection in the mirrored walls. Only, my reflection didn't move when I did. It smiled. On the fourth week, a note appeared taped to my door. Written in shaky handwriting, it said, "If it stops for you, don't look inside." I asked my neighbors about it the next morning. No one admitted to writing it. One woman on the floor below me went pale when I mentioned the elevator. She told me the previous tenant in my apartment disappeared 2 years ago. Security footage showed him entering the elevator at 1:09 a.m. The doors closed. They never opened again. Maintenance insisted nothing was wrong. They said the elevator logs showed normal operation, no unscheduled stops. That night, I stayed awake with the lights on. At 1:09 a.m., the elevator arrived. The doors opened, and a voice spoke from inside. Not loud, not threatening, just close. "You're early tonight." I slammed my door shut and slid to the floor, heart pounding. Then I heard footsteps, slow, measured, stopping right outside my apartment. A gentle knock followed. Once, twice, 3 times. I didn't answer. The footsteps retreated. At 1:10 a.m., the elevator dinged again. The next morning, another note appeared on my door. "It's learning your schedule." I tried to leave the building that night before 1:09. The elevator arrived early. 1:06 a.m., the doors opened. This time the lights were on, and someone was standing inside. It looked like me. Same height, same face. Its smile was wrong, too wide, too practiced, like it had been rehearsing. "Going down?" it asked. I ran down the stairs and didn't stop until I reached the street. I stayed with a friend that night. At 1:09 a.m., my phone buzzed. A notification from my building's security app. "Elevator in use, floor 7. Attached was a camera still. The hallway outside my apartment. My door was open, and something that looked like me was stepping inside. I moved out the next day. But sometimes, when I'm awake late, I hear an elevator ding in my dreams, and a voice that sounds just like mine whispers, "You missed your stop."
The first thing you should know is that the town siren wasn't meant to be heard at night. It was installed decades ago, back when the mill still ran and floods were a real threat. Everyone knew the rule. If the siren ever sounded after dark, you were supposed to stay inside and wait for instructions. In my lifetime, it had never gone off once, until the night it called my name. I was awake when it happened, 2:41 a.m., lying in bed, scrolling through my phone, when the air outside shifted. That's the only way I can describe it. The night didn't get louder or quieter. It felt hollowed out. Then the siren wailed, low at first, a deep, rising moan that crawled through the walls and vibrated in my chest. Not sharp like an alarm, long, mournful, wrong. I sat up, heart pounding, and listened as porch lights flickered on up and down the street. Curtains moved, doors cracked open. People were waking up. The siren stopped after 30 seconds. Silence rushed back in, heavier than before. My phone buzzed. A local emergency alert lit up the screen. "This is a test. Please disregard." No one believed that. The next morning, the town was restless. At the diner, people whispered over their coffee. Someone said the siren hadn't been tested in over 20 years. Someone else claimed they heard voices layered beneath it, like words stretched too thin to understand. By nightfall, the unease had settled into something sharper. At 2:41 a.m., the siren sounded again. This time, it was closer. I don't mean louder, I mean nearer. The sound didn't feel like it was coming from the hill where the siren stood. It felt like it was coming from just outside my bedroom window. Underneath the wail, I heard something else. Breathing. Slow. Patient. My phone buzzed again. No alert this time, just a voicemail notification. I hadn't missed any calls. I played it. At first it was static. Then a voice whispered, barely audible beneath the hiss, "Come outside." I didn't sleep the rest of the night. On the third night, the town siren didn't stop. It wailed for minutes at a time, cycling through tones I'd never heard before. Higher, sharper, almost frantic. Dogs howled, car alarms triggered and died. People began leaving their houses. I watched from my front window as my neighbors stepped into the street, eyes unfocused, moving slowly, as if pulled by something they couldn't see. Some of them were smiling. My phone buzzed again. Another voicemail. This one was clearer. "We're closer now." I locked my doors, turned off the lights, sat on the floor with my back against the wall, listening as footsteps passed outside my house. Not running,
not searching, just walking. At 2:41 a.m., the siren cut out mid-wail. The silence afterward was unbearable. Then came the knocking. Not on the door, on the walls, every wall, at once. The sound rippled through the house like something testing its shape from the outside. Fingers, or something like them, dragged slowly across the siding. My phone buzzed. A final voicemail. This time, I recognized the voice immediately. It was mine. "You shouldn't hide," it said gently. "You came out last time." The lights flickered on. Every room. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Slow, careful, stopping just outside the door where I sat. A shadow pooled beneath the crack. Too many legs. The siren screamed one last time, right above the house. When morning came, the town was quiet again. Too quiet. Cars sat abandoned in driveways. Front doors stood open. Half-eaten breakfasts rested on kitchen tables. People were gone. Authorities said it was a mass evacuation. Panic. Group hysteria. They said the siren malfunctioned. They said no voicemails were sent. But every night at 2:41 a.m., my phone still buzzes. No number, no missed call. Just a single notification. One new voicemail. I don't listen anymore, because I'm starting to hear the siren without it, and it sounds like it's coming from inside my chest.